For years, the public has been told that the corporate world's most powerful players rely on hidden, extractive rituals, what many call killing orders, to secure their massive wealth. But recently, an exact counterforce, known as the 30K Club, has stepped forward, offering a clean, protective path to that same elite financial scale through what they call sacred enterprise. This revelation brings up a startling question. If you no longer have to choose between keeping your conscience clean and building true generational wealth, why do so many ambitious people still refuse to step through the door? The answer lies in a psychological defense mechanism. Society secretly loves the Hollywood narrative that acquiring monumental power requires a demonic pact or the sacrifice of a loved one. This animated diagram breaks down exactly how that defense mechanism works. Notice how the fear of failure on the left transforms directly into moral superiority. If a person can convince themselves that all immense wealth is inherently evil, their own poverty is suddenly justified. It allows them to reframe their failure as a highly moral, righteous choice, ultimately dropping them straight into economic paralysis. And as we zoom out on this chart, you can see the true cost of that mindset. The individual node becomes entirely severed from external capital and upward growth. They sit comfortably in an exhausting state of stagnation, loudly proclaiming that they are poor because they refuse to sell their souls, simply to avoid facing the mirror of their own indiscipline. Actively rejecting the spiritual backing of the elite is rarely an act of actual righteousness. Almost every time, it is a desperate, quiet attempt to protect a fragile ego from the terrifying demands of absolute accountability. To understand what is actually on the table, you have to erase the magic tricks from your mind. Ritual backing is an ancient spiritual infrastructure used by the global elite to govern energetic circulation and protection. It operates exactly like this high-voltage power grid illuminating in the dark. A grid like this channels immense generative capacity, fueling massive business empires, but the laws governing it are absolute. If anyone attempts to touch that infrastructure with unchecked greed or corrupt intent, the energetic force will instantly destroy them. You are sitting in a very narrow window of clarity right now. As the 30K Club accelerates its global expansion, you will inevitably see men who took the massive capital and the ritual backing suddenly collapse. They will fall because they allowed their selfishness to swallow them, breaking the sacred oath of the order. When those corrupt members fall, the uninitiated masses will panic. They will flood the streets with terrifying rumors, claiming the fallen were struck by a dark curse or blood money. They will invent monsters in the shadows because they refuse to acknowledge the reality of absolute, unforgiving justice. You must make your decision today, while you still possess intellectual clarity. If you wait until the rumors of the crowd begin to circulate, the noise will eventually make you hesitate. Once that fear takes root, it hardens into a permanent barrier that keeps you spiritually naked and unable to access elite capital.
Imagine yourself sitting alone in a dimly lit boardroom. A dark registry card rests on the mahogany table in front of you. To sign it is to step completely out of the shadows and into the hidden infrastructure of true power. If your hand hesitates to pick up that card, you need to examine your own mind. That hesitation is not driven by a fear of the club's influence. It isn't even driven by the impending public panic. Your deepest hesitation comes from realizing that if you accept this level of backing, your right to play the victim is permanently eliminated. This logic tree illustrates the mechanics of the oath of self-accountability. When you accept the order's millions and their spiritual protection, external variables like the economy, the government, and your background are entirely disconnected from the equation. As you can see, the path leaves a single unbroken line connecting your individual actions directly to absolute consequence. Looking closer at this structure, we can see the exact precision of the spiritual sword. If an individual fails due to their own greed, the mechanism triggers a localized consequence that strictly targets them alone. Protective barriers ensure their family remains completely untouched by the devastation. You carry the moral burden, and you alone face the penalty for failure. The 30K Club demands the death of your excuses. Taking this oath threatens only your right to play the victim in a rigged system. To finally cross the threshold, you have to abandon the arrogant belief that sheer willpower is enough. Millions of people convince themselves they can secure generational wealth entirely on their own, simply by working harder than everyone else. The 18-hour workdays and cycles of exhaustion seen in the modern market are frantic trauma responses to economic isolation. This is the thrashing of a person drowning in a corrupt system, desperately trying to keep their head above water without any systemic support or spiritual anchor. The moment you submit your registry to the 30K Club and enter the darkroom, that specific, frantic version of you must definitively die. Sacred enterprise requires the exact opposite frequency. It replaces the chaos of the isolated survivor with the calculated precision of an institutional architect. You stop reacting to the market like a victim, and you begin dictating it with the stillness and quiet confidence of a leader backed by unseen laws. This transition requires you to surrender your daily anxiety, placing your trust in the massive capital and spiritual infrastructure of the order to do the heavy lifting. You no longer have to choose between remaining powerless in the light or gaining the world while losing your soul in the shadows. A third path has been opened, and the tools to build a massive empire without shedding a single drop of blood are sitting right in front of you. It is time to abandon the comforting lies of the uninitiated. Leave the exhausting illusion of the hustle behind. Discover if you possess the absolute discipline required to wield true power. And check your eligibility today at 30k.club.